Well, hello there guys, and welcome back to my channel. And in this video we're going to study recursion. So recursion is a fancy term which we use in functions. What is recursion? It's basically a function calling itself again and again and then doing something. So it's basically function repeating itself again and again, or function forming loops of functions of itself, not the other functions. So recursion is a pretty handy thing if you want to repeat a function. For some conditions you can obviously use loops to repeat the function. Like for example, if you want to repeat a function 10 times, you can just simply make a for loop or a while loop which runs 10 times and just keep calling that function inside that loop. You can do that, but recursion is sometimes handy in some cases. Like for example, if we calculate the factorial, factorial is basically this. So if I write 3 factorial, it will be equal to 3 into 2 into 1, and that's equal to 6. And if I calculate 5 factorial, it will be basically 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, that's 120. So that's the factorial. So in this video we're going to calculate that by recursion. So recursion is basically function calling itself again and again, and you obviously, if you are looping something or if you're repeating something, you need to give it a limit, because if you don't, it will keep calling itself again and again infinite number of times. So we obviously have to keep this in mind that we have to give it a limit. So in case of factorials, the limit is 0, because if you multiply anything by 0, it becomes 0, right? And then factorial is useless. Calculating factorial is useless. So we need not go to 0, we only need to go to 1. So here we go. How do we calculate the factorial using recursion? And this will explain you also how recursion works. Okay, so here we go. I have calculated the factorial of 3 over here, and I have explained how this works. But first, let me just show you what the functions system is. So I have checked if n is equal to 0, so that's my limit for recursion. Return 1. Okay, so it will just return 1 if the n is equal to 0. And just to tell you guys that the factorial of 0 is also termed as 1. And if n is not equal to 0, which means it's an integer number, and in this case we are not checking for negative numbers, we are only checking for positive numbers. So if n is a positive number, or if n is a number, it's going to return n star, the function with the parameter as n minus 1. Okay, so you're not going to understand this if I just try to blabber it out to you guys, so I'm going to explain it to you over here. So first thing first, NA3 gets called. Okay, so NA3 checks inside NA3, we first check if 3 is equal to 0. Obviously not, so we're going to run the else part. In the else part, it says return n star NA minus 1. So n is 3, okay, multiplied by whatever this function returns. Okay, so n minus 1 is 2, so we call NA2, and whatever this function returns, this will multiply that with 3 and return it. Okay, but first we need to calculate what this function will return. So NA2 will get called. So here's NA calling itself NA again, so that's a recursion. So now inside NA2, it will check if 2 is equal to 0. Obviously not, so we'll again execute the else part, and it says return n star NA minus 1. So n is now 2, remember. So now it will return 2 multiplied by NA into 2 minus 1. What's 2 minus 1 is 1. So 2 star NA, whatever this returns, whatever this function returns. So now to calculate what this function returns, we will have to first call this function or run this function. So now NA1 gets called, and so here's the recursion for NA2. So now inside NA1, again, 1 is not equal to 0, else part runs. So it's gonna give me 1 star NA0. So again, NA0 will get called, because first we need to calculate what NA0 is returning. To calculate what this will return, NA1 will return, and then to calculate this and to calculate this. You'll see that in a second, right? So inside NA0, now n is equal to 0, okay? So it will simply return 1. So here you can see return 1, okay? So now we know what NA1 will return. It will return 1. So this will be replaced by 1. So 1 star 1 is 1. Okay, is equal to 1. So now we know what NA1 will return. It will return 1. So now this gets replaced by 1. Okay? Because this will return the value to where it was called. So it returned where it was called, it returned 1. So now this is equal to 2. It's equal to 2. So basically, the return statement of NA2 becomes now I'll just give this here. So this was the return statement of NA2, 2 star NA. 2 minus 1 is 1, right? And we know that NA1 will return 1. So this became the return statement of NA2. And 2 into 1 is 2. So this became the return statement of 2. So now we know what NA2 has to return, which means all the execution of NA2 is completed. So NA2 will return this 2 to where it was called. It was called over here. So it will return 2 over here. And 3 star 2 is 6. Basically 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. So now we know finally what NA3 will return. And NA3 was called in the main function over here. So it will return 6 over here. And x will be equal to 6. So that's how the factorial is calculated. Similarly for what's going to happen is, let me just undo all that. Yeah. So similarly, if we go for NA4, what's going to happen is just going to one step for the first time. NA4 will be working like this. 4 star NA3. So the same working will go. It will first call NA3, then NA3 will call NA2, then NA2 will call NA1, then NA1 will call NA0, and none of the functions NA4, 3, 2, 1 will be completed till they know what they can return. Okay? So NA1 calls NA0, NA0 will return 1, so this will be 1 now. 1 star 1 will return 1, so NA1 will return 1. 2 star 1 will be 2, so NA2 will return 2. 3 star 2 will be 6, so NA3 will return 6, and 4 star 6, 4 multiplied by 6 is 24, so NA4 will return 24 to where it was called over here. So that's how we calculate factorials, and let me just save this and quickly compile this and show this to you guys. Control S. Let me clear this out. And as you can see, it calculated me the factorial of 4. So this is recursion, a function calling itself again and again till some limit has reached. That's how you perform recursion. You call the function again in the return statement. So this is pretty much it for this recursion video. It's a pretty important topic. If you don't understand, just leave your doubts in the comment section below. And I highly recommend to see a program for Fibonacci series using recursion in C. Fibonacci series is basically a special series which goes like, I think, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. So it's basically summing the last two numbers and getting another number. So that's how Fibonacci series goes. I highly recommend you watch that program and try to make it yourself, because that will clear things out for recursion. So this is pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and we are almost nearing the end of C tutorial, maybe 1 or 2 more videos. So thanks for watching, guys. Goodbye.